This is a Geek Leader podcast, and I'm your host, John Rauda. This show is all about helping us grow as leaders, become better technologists, and improve our lives both at work and at home. I hope you enjoy the show and learn a lot. Welcome to a Geek Leader podcast. I'm your host, John Rauda. And if you could, please do me a favor and take a moment and leave a rating and review in whatever podcast player you're listening to this on, whether it's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, doesn't matter. I would greatly appreciate it. And that feedback really helps get other listeners to the show. Also, if you're not subscribed, go ahead and subscribe so you don't miss an episode. And if you feel so inclined, you can go to geekleader.com/tip and donate to the show. Thanks so much. All right, Geek Leaders, today I'm honored to have Radhika Paliwal on the show. She is the author of a book called From Ramen Noodles to Riches. And we're going to talk about personal finance, leadership, career development, and lots more today on the show. So hopefully you guys will buckle up and get ready for a ride. Anyway, with all that being said, Radhika, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, John.
If you don't mind, just tell the audience a little bit about your background, how you got into personal finance and career and leadership development, and what is it that you do today?
Yeah, absolutely. I've had a bit of a roller coaster of a journey, if I'm being honest. So I started my career as a software engineer. All of my jobs were related to, coding, just being on site, developing. And then I decided to switch up my career by first joining a sales program at a corporate company. And it was awesome. And that's when, that was my first full-time job out of college, just a little bit before COVID. And that's when I realized I was spending a lot more money on the weekends than I thought I would be. I was spending maybe hundreds of dollars Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, like you name it, right? And I thought I was finally earning a salary for the first time until I checked my bank account and I was like, holy crap, I have no money left in there. And that's when it clicked for me that, you know what? Just because you're earning a salary doesn't mean anything. We need to have a basic understanding of personal finance. And I dove head in and started reading books, listening to podcasts, watching YouTube videos. And that's where my journey started, essentially. I ended up then creating a few bank accounts. I started investing in real estate. And then eventually I got to a point where I was like, damn, I wish all of this was taught to me when I was much younger. So I wrote a book, From Ramen Noodles to Riches, for people who are making that big transition in their life. And it's a guide with actionable steps for anyone who's just felt like overwhelmed by money, that just like I was.
I think that's fantastic. And, I love the fact that you found a problem in yourself and solved it for yourself first, and then kind of decided, hey, I'm doing it. I figured something out. Let me share it with the world. And I think that's a great approach. And, you mentioned that you wish you were taught this earlier, and I felt the same way. And I got so lucky with it when I was in college. It was my senior year. I was getting ready to graduate, and I was an entrepreneurship major at the time. And one of my professors brought in people to speak at the last 3 lectures of his class. And one of the people that came in was a personal finance person. And he talked just about investing in retirement, and that you needed to start a 401k, and every time you get a raise, add more to it and things like that. And I took that to heart and I did it, and I never really thought much about it. And I kind of assumed everybody was doing this. And my first time getting into management, I started talking to my team about 401k, and I found out that I had people on my team that were in their 50s that had never put a penny away.
Wow.
And yeah, it is. And so that kind of opened my eyes to the idea, this is not something that people just know. And I think it's fantastic that you discovered it on your own. How is it that you go about when you meet somebody that's fresh out of college or early on in their career? What advice do you give to them?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think most often I find that people are just really afraid of putting money away. There's some sort of weird comfort level people have by seeing money in their checkings account. And as soon as we ask them, or I tell them about 401k, Roth IRA, even a brokerage account, or forget all of that, even a savings account, they feel a little nervous that, it's not in my checkings account that I can use. So I think the first thing I would say is try to really figure out where those fears are coming from. Why do you feel like you need to have a lot of money in your checkings? And maybe go beyond that to say, okay, well, what amount are you comfortable with leaving it in there? And then if it's, let's just assume for this example, like let's say you need $5,000 in your checkings account. Well, can you put anything beyond that in your brokerage, in your Roth IRA? And then the second step would be like after you figured out your amount, we'll start creating an automated plan, right? Like you don't have to do this manually.
Mm.
Just go in and set up and say, hey, every month, $100 or $1,000 into my brokerage account on an automated basis, so you don't have to think about it again. So now this is process is being done for you, and you don't have to go through that like same fear all over again.
Yeah, I love that idea of automating it, and that's one of the things that I just recently started doing some additional automation using a brokerage account because I started thinking about like I have checkings and savings, and then I have my 401k and some a few mutual funds and some a couple of things here and there, but I wasn't like automatically adding more to it and growing my wealth,
Hmm.
and I was just putting things in savings, and one day someone mentioned to me like, oh, like an investment account, you can have a high yield savings and get 4%, whatever
Mhm.
it is, annually. And I was like, well, I wonder what my savings account gets. And it was like, it was embarrassing. I don't even remember how low it was, but it was super low and embarrassing. So I started that same path. Instead of just moving stuff to savings, let's automate it and put it in at least a high yield savings,
Yeah.
account somewhere.
Well, the way I have mine set up right now is I actually automate uh, directly into my brokerage account, which then directly invests in the S&P 500. So I have the
Mm.
set amount, and I'm just like, you know what? Like every month or bi-weekly when I get my paycheck, take $500, put it in the S&P 500, and automatically invest for me. So again, like this is something. It's almost like, have you heard that whole rule of like profit first or save first or invest first? Um, it's that entire idea of like pay yourself and then spend on it. And so again,
Mhm.
like this $500 for me is something that's automatically being invested into the S&P 500, and then whatever money I have left over is now mine to spend as I choose for it to. But if I'd done it the opposite way and it's like spent first, I would have never have had $500 to invest in the first place.
Yeah, I think that's great. So you're basically taking it out of your checking account before you start spending it, before you see it's there, so you don't even realize you've missed it.
Exactly, exactly.
Yeah, that's kind of what I've done with raises over the years. Like if you get a raise, let's say you get your annual, 3 or 4% raise or whatever it is, I would automatically take half of whatever that raise is and increment my 401k contributions by
Oh,
that
yeah.
amount. So
Yeah.
that way I felt like I got a little bit of a raise, but yet I never missed, the other part. And over time, you start out with putting 3% away or something like that. After several years of getting raises, next thing you know, you're putting, 10, 11, 12% away every year. You don't even, notice it.
Yeah, that's such a great point because I think a lot of people also fall into the trap of lifestyle inflation. Um,
Mm.
Almost like keeping up with the Joneses, buying a new car, buying a larger house, buying all like the latest clothes and like all the fancy brands. And you kind of have to think for yourself, like all of those things important to me? And is that what I value in life? If so, great. I guess that's what you can spend money on. Or instead, is there like one or two aspects of life that you really, really care about? So like for me, it's definitely been like a nice gym, something I care about heavily, right? Like nice clothes, yes. But as far as like a house or a car, they're probably at like the bottom of my list. And so like now I have specific areas of life that I will choose to spend money in only because I am not spending money in like, the keeping up with the Joneses kind of
Mhm.
fashion where it's everywhere and anywhere, just trying to inflate my life for no reason.
Yeah, no, I think that's good. I think it's really good to really think about those things because a lot of people don't even realize it, and they just they see someone else doing something, so they start doing it too. And
Yeah.
and it used to be like for us early on before we really got intentional about things, like it was going out to dinner. Oh, let's just go out here, let's go out there. Next thing you know, you're spending a whole bunch of money going out every night.
Oh, yeah.
Um, and now we've kind of prioritized that to where travel's really important for us, and
Mhm.
experiencing the world in different ways and taking our kids out of the country and letting them experience other cultures. That's really important for us.
I love that. I'm the same way. Travel's like high on my list.
So when it comes to like, doing what you're saying with, being, I guess, aware of your habits when it comes to keeping up with the Joneses, as you put it, how do you go about like seeing that? Because sometimes people don't even realize they're doing it.
Good question. You know what? I think a lot of this come has to do with self-reflection.
Mm.
Um, Whether we're talking about, I mean, money or career or life, you really have to think about what you want and what you care about. And I think people don't slow down enough to figure out what that is. I think people are just constantly in this like go, go, go. It's almost as if they're living life in passive, like someone else is in the driver's seat. And I'd like people to flip the script and take control and really try to sit down with themselves, understand what is it that they're looking for, what is it that they care about, what are their priorities, and then move forward with that direction. It's actually one of my biggest pet peeves that people are just really passive and don't live life with intention.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think that's, you mentioned, you're early on in your career, you were a software engineer, and that's one of the things that I've noticed like really good Scrum teams do is they focus heavily on that retrospective
Yeah.
and taking time to look back on what went well and what didn't, and you know, less, I don't want to say poor teams, but teams that don't produce as good, they typically kind of gloss over the retrospective or don't take it seriously and don't really take that time to reflect on what went well and what didn't go well in their life and how to slow down and evaluate the right direction because you can be moving really fast, but if you're moving in the wrong way, it's hurting you more than helping.
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely. I think also too, I read this quote the other day where it said some of the most successful people I know out there are slowing down instead of speeding up. And it's been on my mind for the last few months. And, I actually recently just started a new job, moved to a new city, moved across country actually. And, there's all these like life changes, new apartment, new friends, new way of living, new everything. And I think like all of that combined has led me to this like weird form of burnout where it's not really just like one thing affecting, but it's like all the change. And when I read that quote and I'm like, huh, that's so true. It, like society puts such a big emphasis on like go, go, go and speeding up. But yeah, it's true that most of the successful people out there are focused on recovery and slowing down. And maybe that's what we should all be doing a little bit more of.
Yeah, yeah. So how do you personally deal with burnout and even detect that you're getting burned out? Because sometimes I'll be like, really focused on a project and get, really involved in it and not realize that I'm already burned myself out till it's too late.
Yeah, that's a good point. Um, so first off, I have a daily check-in with myself. It's not anything like special or time consuming. It's just like, hey, Radhika, like, how are you feeling? What's happening? Are you too overwhelmed? Are you not, or are you too bored? Do you need time and space for yourself? Like usually, like I've just been getting better and better at like sensing where I'm at. And when the time comes, where I'm like, okay, yeah, this is getting too overwhelming, or it's just a lot to figure out all at once. I check in with myself and I'm like, okay, what do I need? So, one of the things that's become almost like a daily ritual for me is I'll wake up in the morning, I'll pour myself a cup of tea, and just take that moment to myself where I'll meditate, think about, sort of my goals, think about what truly brings me joy, and create like this morning ritual before I kickstart my day with meetings or anything else that comes up. And so this way I'm like grounded and really in tune with who I am, what I'm looking for before all like the rush of messages, emails, and just the things that come on in the day.
Yeah, I love that. I think I don't do that as much as I probably should. Actually, I'm sure I don't do it as much as I should. But I do find a way to like try not to check email first thing in the morning. I want to make
Yeah.
sure that I accomplish something before I
Mhm.
check email. And if that's going to the basement, doing a quick workout, or if it's getting some reading in, or even reaching out to some people to build some professional relationships or whatever that is, I'm going to do something before I get, knocked off guard with emails from the morning. Because I found that once I check email, like the schedule's off. Yeah.
I know, I know. I think we're constantly bombarded by so many different smart technology that we have around us. I mean, think about like for me myself, like I have a phone, a laptop, an iPad, a smartwatch, and it's
Mhm.
just there's so much technology near us. We have to be more proactive about blocking them out in our lives.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's I think limiting your screen time is super important.
Hmm.
Just to focus on things other than social media.
Yes. Yes.
Um, so in your book, you talk a lot about, some of the step-by-step methods of 401k and Roth IRAs. What's the difference between the two, and why would I pick one over the other?
Yeah, great question. So 401k, typically this is led by your employer. So you'll have a 401k plan with them. And 401k is pre-tax, as in, let's say you make, let's just stick with 5,000. That seems to be the magic number today.
Mhm.
Let's say you make $5,000 or that's your paycheck. 401k takes money from that $5,000 amount and puts it in to this investment vehicle, then grows over time. And 401k, Roth, one of the things that are similar about them is both of them you can access once you reach that retirement age. The way the Roth works is that it's post-tax. So let's say, again, you earn $5,000. Let's say you're taxed $1,000. So actually your take-home pay is $4,000. And then Roth takes money from that $4,000 amount instead. And so it just kind of depends. Like, there's no right or wrong answer. It's just essentially figuring out if you think you will be taxed higher or lower when it comes time to take money out. And that's kind of something you have to determine for yourself. The other caveat is for Roth IRA specifically, there are income limits and there are contribution limits, which are lower than the 401k. So 401k, I recommend everyone at the bare minimum matches their employer. Like, that is free money that you are getting from your employer. So everyone should be doing that no matter what. Does that
Yeah.
kind of help?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's, I think you're absolutely right. The bare minimum is to match. And then, like I said earlier, I advise people just to slowly build that up over time, just so you're not missing it. Because if you start right away and, you know, try to drop 10% of your paycheck directly into a 401k when you've never done it before, it's gonna hurt. It's gonna seem like a jarring amount. But if you just do a little bit over time, it's gonna make a big difference. And before you know it, you'll have a significant amount saved up and not even notice it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Um, so shifting gears just a little bit, when you're giving people that are, maybe fresh out of college or early on in their life, career advice and financial advice, do you ever, talk to people about like multiple streams of income or entrepreneurship or things like that versus just, a regular job? Like what advice do you give to people that may be interested in going down that path?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, again, like a lot of that is lifestyle dependent, right? So,
Mhm.
you've probably heard that quote where most millionaires, or what is it? The average millionaire has seven streams of income. I believe
Wow.
that's what it is. And so think about what that means. If you're working a regular W-2 job, that's one stream of income. So how can you build additional streams? And whether that's starting something of your own and pursuing entrepreneurship, or whether that's continue working your W-2 and having multiple different side hustles, just think about things that are bringing you income. So one of the big things I talk about actually that anyone can do, whether you're an entrepreneur or whether you're working a W-2 job, is real estate. And real estate is a great way to have a physical asset that helps you in terms of diversification. Number two, it's just a way to bring in like cash flow and dividends. Number three, real estate appreciates in value. And then number four, there's a lot of tax benefits that go along with it too, right? So that's one of the big like assets I talk about. And then of course, like if you take on entrepreneurship as a whole, the business itself has an unlimited cap to making money, right? Like W-2, let's assume you make 100K. Well, with a raise 4%, 5%, maybe make, 105K, 110K. And so eventually there's a cap to the amount of income you can earn. But with entrepreneurship or pursuing your own business, technically there's no cap. The question just becomes about how much how much time are you putting in to grow that business? And what does that look like in terms of a 1, 3, 5 year plan? And can you get to this like can you get to, let's say, like 1 million in ARR? Start with 100K, 500K, then 1 million. And that's essentially what you want to work towards. It's just different lifestyle approaches. And that's, again, what I ask people to think about first.
Yeah, I think it's a really good idea, and I love the fact you mentioned the different streams of income because that's one of the things that I think is super important. And I encourage my team to get a side hustle of some sort, whether it be real estate, whether it be if you're a software engineer, start building some apps on your own, try to develop your own SaaS product or whatever. And anything that you learn by doing those things also benefits the business that you're working for because you have additional skills now and knowledge that you can kind of apply to other things that you're doing.
Hmm. Yeah.
Um, Give me some advice about real estate. When you mentioned real estate, I've dabbled in it before when it comes to rental properties and just owning property. What kind of advice do you have for someone getting started to make sure they don't that they do go down the right path of that? Because it can be a little confusing sometimes, and it can be overwhelming if you try to do too much on your own.
Yeah. John, one of my biggest mistakes early on was I thought that only millionaires could invest in real estate. And boy, was I wrong. So, first of all, recognizing and figuring out like that real estate is possible. There's actually a book called Investing in Real Estate with Zero or Low Money Down. Highly recommend checking that out for any beginners. Um, I just to be like transparent about numbers, the first property I invested in was actually in the Midwest. It was a 100K property, so I put down 20%. So my total like all in price, including closing costs, down payment, fees, was around 20K. So if that helps like people understand that you can get started in real estate with 20K, I would say start saving up. If not, look at other strategies, like I mentioned in the book, that will help them understand like how they can invest with little money down. The other thing to think about, and I go through this in my book as well, is there's different real estate strategies. There's buy and hold, where you're essentially buying a property, holding it for a long time. There's flipping it, buying a really terrible property, flipping it, working with contractors, and then selling it for a higher profit. Three, there's like essentially it's called BRRRR. So like buying it, refurnish it, or like flipping it, furnishing it, and then renting it out. And so essentially doing the whole process, but then continuing to hold on to it. And then of course there's like short-term and mid-term rentals, which are different than long-term rentals. So again, all of this being said, like whether we're talking to an entrepreneur or someone within W2, time is of the essence. And a lot of people like to say, like, find passive investments. I don't really believe that there's such a thing as passive investments, because all of it requires work.
Right.
The question really is like, how much work can you put in, and do you have time to put in?
Yeah, I agree 100%. I think you can build assets that generate revenue, you know,
Mhm.
but you're still putting in work. It's either a lot of active work up front and a little bit along the way, or maybe it's a moderate amount across all, like, spread out equally, but it's
Exactly.
always going to be some kind of work. And if not, the asset's going to die if it's not taken care of.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that was one thing that I early this is like a long time ago when the iPhone first came out. Um, I was probably like launched probably one of the first 1,000 apps that was on the iPhone. And,
Great.
because I wanted to try to build apps. So I learned how to do it, started building apps and putting them out there. And I thought that I was going to build like an app and then let it go and just generate revenue for forever and not update it, not have to work on it. And, obviously that didn't happen. I generated a lot of revenue at the beginning, but then as I didn't update it, the app just kind of got less and less used. And eventually, it's not a significant app anymore.
Oh, what app was it?
One of my apps is a game called Bubble Pops. That
Got
one
it.
was actually, I think at one point I had 4 million active users on it, but it slowly like dwindled away to where it's probably just in the I may get 150,000 a month or something like that. So it's
Yeah.
not really relevant anymore in the scheme of things because it wasn't maintained and updated. I did the basic minimum updates that you have to do to keep it in the app store, whereas
Mhm.
other people like Candy Crush came in and they were adding all kinds of features and levels
Yeah.
and engagement opportunities that because again it's not. I treated it as if it was what they call passive, um, and
Mhm.
in order to be successful with it, I would have had to keep it more active.
Yeah, I mean, my parents are always told me growing up that there's no such thing as free samples or free anything in the world. Especially every time we went to Costco, like there's always like a price you're paying. I think that translates to passive as well. Like there's no such thing as a truly passive investment. It's just different levels of active in it. So just think about what that means for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was trying to teach my kids that same lesson this just a couple weeks ago. We were in Barcelona, and one of the street vendors was trying to give my son like a free toy. And I'm like,
Mhm.
it's not free. There's it's not. He's like, yeah, like I said, it was free. I could take it. I'm like, no, there's an expectation that you would purchase something. Like it's not free. So just be
Or
aware of
your
that.
your time is being lost or something else. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. There's always some expectation that you should be doing something, or you're wasting another opportunity somewhere.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
So what other types of advice would you give to someone starting out in their career to not just on the financial side, but just in general, leadership and development that someone wants to take if they want to be successful in life, in their career, avoid burnout, become good at their job? What kind of advice would you give someone?
Yeah, I mean, going back to kind of what I was talking about earlier, right? Like, recognize that life isn't something that's happening to you. It's something that you can actively create on your own.
Mm.
So, one of the things I do on a very regular basis, probably every 6 months, is I sit down with myself and I create a 5 year plan. And I'm like, okay, what do I want the next 5 years to look like? And the reason I do it on a 6 month basis is because the information I have changes, right? Like whether it's my own interests, whether it's opportunities given to me at that time, whether, yeah, it's just something else I want to pursue all of a sudden. But I create this 5 year plan and it includes things like career. What roles do I want to be in? What do I want to pursue? Do I want to create something? Then it includes things like money. Like, is there like financial targets I have for myself, whether it's net worth, amount in investments, amount in savings, the number of properties. And then it also includes fun things like, yeah, maybe a trip to Barcelona or a trip to Japan or learning scuba diving or finishing a marathon. And the reason I like to talk about this and give people this advice is you can really just like make things happen. The hardest part and the most difficult thing for people is to decide what things they want to make happen. But once you do, and once it's on paper, and once it's something you've given thought to, then it's just about going after that goal, right? But I think a lot of people are just like confused and, like I said, like letting life happen to them. Um, yeah, and I don't know. That's just like I don't want. That's probably like one of the big like frustrations that uh people go through is, well, like what am I gonna do or what can I do, or it's just like this just happened, like it sucks. But that's not the case really. Like you choose what's happening and you choose how to control that narrative moving forward.
Yeah, I love that. I think I found that, what you're doing there, creating a 5-year plan, for me, like writing goals down. And I used to do this a lot more than I do now. And I wish I still did it more. And I probably need to start back on it I used to write down like bucket list items and, I would do like a 6-month plan. What's the name of that book? God, I wish I remembered it. Oh yeah. The Accidental Creative. So in that book by Todd Henry, he talks about, 3 different types of goals for your life.
And
And, the whole book's about like you graduated college and you went to be like in finance or accounting or computer science. And it turns out that you have to be creative. And how do you be creative accidentally? But in there, he talks a little bit about how you set up step goals, stretch goals, and, step goals, sprint goals, and stretch goals. And like your step goals, like, what do you want to do this week? And, your sprint goals, maybe like, what do you want to do in the next 6 months? And then you have your stretch goals of like, in the next 5 years, I want to do this thing. And, I used to write those down and I did a marathon. I was like, I'm going to write down doing a marathon. And, I have, 1 year to reach this goal. And I did it, it's just one of those things where I would sit down and, I came up with like little goals along the way. Like I want to start with a 5K and then I'm going to do a 10K. And I'm going to do a half marathon. I want to do a, Tough Mudder or whatever, and just put those down on the
work
list.
backwards.
Yeah. And kind of just, complete those goals along the way. And they, once you, do a 5K and you get your little medal, you're like, okay, now I'm motivated to start training for the 10K and, so on and so forth. They just build on one another.
Yeah, there's something really powerful about physically writing pen to paper your goals. I will be as old school as needed about this, even if like all these notepads and technology take over, because like the physical act of writing down your goals, maybe putting it on a sticky note, maybe putting it on a calendar, somewhere you see on a daily basis. I know a lot of people choose like their bathroom mirrors. I personally choose my desk, but like it helps you move forward with it, seeing it day in and day out. I wouldn't have written my book or been an engineering leader or been able to do all the things. Yeah, like I also just recently completed a triathlon and I've ran a marathon as well. I wouldn't have been able to do any of those things if I actually didn't write it down on a physical piece of paper.
Yeah, I think I think it's really good advice, and that's one of those things that people just take for granted, or they just don't have faith in, so they just don't do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, but for sure, writing it down and having it in front of you, or having it somewhere where you can kind of look at it and either be positively or negatively reminded of that thing. Because sometimes it's like, crap, I didn't do it. You get that negative reminder, I got to go do this thing because it's sitting here like nagging me, or it could be positive that I did do it and I feel good about myself.
And the other thing too is, right, like a lot of people wait for that right time to start. I made this mistake like many, many times where I'd be like, oh, well, it's September. I can't start now. I have to start in January 1st. I mean, like the New Year's is a new year for a reason, or like whatever, like I'll start on my birthday or something. But I think the other thing is like there's no right time. Like who cares if it's a Tuesday in April? Just start right now. Like why are we trying to make it perfect instead of just starting? And like that's when like analysis paralysis gets to people. So instead of putting in like 100% of effort on January 1st, just put in 20% or 50% today and see where that takes you and just like continue to build on that momentum.
Yeah, that's really good advice. And I found myself in the same kind of situations. I had a goal a few years ago that I was going to complete all three of my fitness things on my Apple Watch every single day for 365 days. And I
Wow.
did it for like it was September, and I tore my ACL. And it's like, well, that's goal shot. I ended up just like not working out the rest of the year. It's like, I gotta wait till January to start back over. But in reality, I could have started back as soon as, I was recovered. But
That's a really good goal to have though. But yeah, I mean, I think like what you're referring to there is like being able to pivot
Mhm.
uh, and pivot from understanding like what your current reality is. And that's kind of why I mentioned like, it kind of sounds ironic and maybe even like funny when people think about me creating a 5-year plan every 6 months. But that's the point of it, right? Like, yeah, you tore your ACL and you had to readjust kind of like
Mhm.
what reality meant for you. So like does what do your fitness goals look like moving forward? And then the information you have also changes. I think like for me, someone who grew up in the Midwest, who grew up in an immigrant family, I was very sheltered and didn't really know about a lot of roles that exist, a lot of places that existed, a lot of like activities that people did. And so like the more I traveled, the more I met people, the more I left, my hometown, lived elsewhere, I learned about careers and people and interesting activities. And as I gathered that information, well, the things I wanted to do changed as well. And so it's just like a continuous like adjustment and improvement on what you're currently building.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's really good advice. And, I love the fact you're talking about pivoting because it's really like you're almost like staying agile with your life. You realize that you're not going to be the same person in 6 months. So what are my goals now? How have they shifted? And what's more important now than maybe it was 6 months ago?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think this has been great. I think it's a great conversation. Hopefully, people are learning about this. And if somebody has questions for you, or maybe they want to find out more about your advice when it comes to financial investment or just leadership and career development, how can they reach out to you online or connect with you and pick up a copy of your book?
Yeah. So, first thing I'll say is thank you so much for having me on the podcast. It's been such a great conversation. You can reach out to me on my website. It's radhikapaliwal.com. RADHIKAPALIWAL.com. I also run a newsletter. It's 3 times a month, and I actually talk about everything we just spoke about, John, like personal finance, personal development, as well as career. And not only that, like since we ended the topic on pivots, I have started interviewing people who've made great pivots in their life once a month and just writing about their stories. And the best part is all of these people I know on a personal basis. So it's really, really cool to see how people have gone from, yeah, quitting their job to starting their own thing, or, being an agent to being an investor of real estate and creating the life that they want to live. So I would say that's how you can start, and you can sign up for my newsletter on my website as well.
Awesome. I think this has been so much fun. And I'll definitely put all those links in the show notes at geekleader.com so people can go there and click through. Radhika, thanks so much for coming on the show.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
Hope you enjoyed the show. Please go to geekleader.com to learn more about what this guest is up to, click on their links, and connect with them online. I would also greatly appreciate it if you could leave me a rating and review in Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to the show. And make sure you've subscribed if you haven't already. And if you feel so inclined, you can leave me a tip by going to geekleader.com/tip.